Hey, Cara here from leolistening.com, where I help intrepid travellers and adventurous expats understand and connect with fast-talking native English speakers through movies and TV shows. So, I want to talk about something that is all over the internet. It is lists of slang words, English phrasal verbs, and idioms in English to learn or to speak about everything from automobiles to zoology. Now, these lists can be quite stress-inducing. I have an English teaching colleague who told me that a student of hers was making herself sick with worry and stress trying to learn a list of the top 100 or top 1000 phrasal verbs. So, in any case, there's no shortage of tips on learning vocabulary, expressions, phrasal verbs, and anything else you can imagine. The thing is, though, when it comes to improving your listening skills and understanding native speakers when they talk fast, especially more words, isn't always better. So in fact, in conversation, people tend to use the same 1,000 to 2,000 words. And yeah, I know we all like to imagine that we have profound discussions about politics and philosophy as if we were in a salon in Paris in the 18th century, but real life isn't like that. It's actually quite boring and repetitive, and this is why people teach courses on small talk, because it's easy to identify the topics that could come up, because it's often the same ones, you know, the weather and things like this. So I would question the pressure that you see out there to constantly learn new words, expressions, and phrases. Not that it isn't useful, but the thing is, in listening, the words that are the hardest to catch are the ones that you already know. It seems counterintuitive, but it isn't. And in fact, new words and expressions, even if you can't catch them completely, they usually stand out quite a lot when you hear them. And also, depending on what you're listening to, these new words and expressions might not even be that useful to you. In contrast, the known words are often harder. So which words am I actually talking about here? Well, these words include things like grammatical words. So by that I mean articles, auxiliary verbs, prepositions, and pronouns. Now these words can change and vary a lot in fast speech. So I once came across a crazy statistic, it's so crazy I can't even pronounce the word, in a book about listening, which said that there were up to 80 different variations of the pronunciation of the word and that's just one word. So even the so-called content words, so verbs, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, can also change in fast speech. So in fact, no word is safe. They can all sound different to the careful pronunciation you see in the dictionary. So for instance, let's take an example here. So one of the things that blows the mind of many English learners is the fact that the H on pronouns often disappears when native speakers talk fast. And that's particularly frustrating to discover if you have trouble pronouncing your H correctly. So when you hear a native speaker say something like Izzy or Ises, what they're actually saying is he or is his, with a dropped H. And I see people struggle with this even at advanced level, and many English learners struggle to incorporate this into their own speech after years of conditioning at school to pronounce everything really carefully and never drop any sounds. So let's take prepositions as another example. So the reason I believe you struggle with phrasal verbs is that it's hard to catch the prepositions when people say these verbs. And in fact, this is one of the problems that I have with slow-talking YouTube teachers reading out these verbs carefully. So, knowing the careful pronunciation, it is important for you so you can start pronouncing them. But that's not how these phrasal verbs will sound in fast speech. So an example that I love to use is the phrasal verb to be up to something. So we often ask the question, what are you up to? Meaning, what are you doing? So in conversation, you might hear, what you up to? In other words, that is the fast version of what are you up to? And in fact, this example illustrates two more listening problems. So the fact that questions get all linked together in fast speech. So what are you becomes whatcha, And also that prepositions change, as I mentioned. So in my case, when I pronounce up fast, it's actually hard for me to pronounce it carefully, up, with a p at the end. I replace it by a glottal stop, so it sounds like so I just pronounce well, there's hardly a vowel there actually. Watch up to. So let me try reading a few more examples with familiar words that can be difficult. So phrasal verb examples. If you want, you can actually pause the video after I read them and then write down what you hear, kind of dictation style. So here's the first example. Let him in. Let him in. So that's the fast version of let him in. So when we say this expression in fast speech, let's call it normal speech, right? We drop the H on him and we link it to let him, let him. And we also add a link between him and in, let him in. And these consonant to vowel links are really, really common in fast speech. Okay, let's try another one then. Get out of the way, get out of the way. So get out of the way basically means move. We could also say move out of the way. Now, get is really hard to catch in fast speech because it's a very common word and often the most frequent words change the most. So very often the T will disappear from the ends of words in English and get is no exception. So you'll hear it usually not as get with a T at the end, but get. Speaking of sounds disappearing at the ends of words, this also happens on of. So that's the careful pronunciation of, but in fast speech, the vowel changes to a schwa and often we drop the end of the word. So you'll just hear outer. The same thing also happens with the. So the vowel becomes a schwa and it sounds like the. Also, when I say this fast, there can be a link between out and of. Although I think when I said it before, I actually replaced the T in out with a glottal stop. Get out of the way. So that makes it even trickier. I'm trying to think how it might sound in an American accent. Get out of the way. They probably use a flap T there and make a link. Okay, so the final example is tell her to go away. Tell her to go away. So go away, the slow version, is another phrasal verb meaning leave, move, or even disappear. And the tricky part in this little sentence is the disappearing H on her and then the link that happens between tell and her. Tell her to go away. Also the sound on to gets reduced to a schwa, so it sounds more like t. And in fact, sometimes when we say it really fast, we don't even pronounce the vowel. It just sounds like t, just the consonant sound on its own. And also, this could vary, but we would probably add a w sound to make the link between go and away. Go away, go away. Although we might even drop that in very fast speech as well. So here's the thing, by training your listening, you'll actually learn more phrasal verbs and more expressions naturally in context because you'll be able to catch them. So again, focus first on accepting that the words that you do know, in this case prepositions, are hard to understand, and then that will help you get in this mindset where you train your listening to focus on catching them. And in fact, focusing on prepositions, for instance, or any grammatical type words will actually help you with other tricky aspects of English grammar, like knowing which preposition to use after an adjective. So for example, do we say interested in or by? So the moral of the story is, don't spend all your time watching the latest videos or reading the latest blog posts with long lists of new vocab, phrasal expressions, phrasal verbs, and expressions and more. Because what really matters is how those expressions sound in fast speech. And the only way to catch them is to train your listening using examples of English where native speakers talk fast. So prefer native speaker podcasts to TED Talks, or movie clips with lots of dialogue to whole movies, or talk shows, or reality TV shows. As you listen, try to spot the phrasal verbs that you might have learned from the list, And question what you're listening to. When you do dictations and you check your work with the transcript, you might discover that in fact there aren't that many new words or expressions. And in fact, the words that you missed are words that you know. That wouldn't surprise me because that's the whole point of this video. So be willing and open to the idea that the known words will continue posing the most problems, and focus your listening training on discovering their different variations in fast speech. So let me know in the comments, are you surprised by my advice? Are you planning to take it? If you like this video, then like it, let me know. If you enjoyed this video and you want more videos like this on improving your English listening skills, then click subscribe. And if you want to hear more from me by joining my newsletter, then you can download my mini movie guide, which will help you understand fast-talking native speakers using your favorite movie or TV show. The link is below in the description. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.